Welcome, everyone. We're live and excited to be with you today. Terry and I are together, but we've got a friend with us today, Tara-Lee, who we are excited to have with us with Nexlevel. And she is doing great work up there in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and all over from there. She's just not only in Calgary, but we are thrilled to introduce her to you and let you get to know her. So welcome, Tara-Lee. We're thrilled to have you on.
Hi, happy to be here.
Fantastic. And Terry, we're glad you're here too.
I'm glad I'm here too. And the way I kind of put it is great. The way I put this is Tara-Lee's cats live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and Tara-Lee is all over the place doing good work.
Yeah.
Yes, fantastic. We keep them in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. They don't travel. Yeah, nice. It's great to be here. This is my favorite topic. This is what I love to do. So any chance I have to chat with great people about doing great work, I'm in.
Yeah. Well, for those of you that have been following us or those who haven't, we are all part of the Organizational Health Collective together, working together on figuring out how do we help organizations do better together. And so that's one of the things we all do together, but we're also all working independently as consultants and diving in with organizations, helping make an impact and helping their organizations thrive. And so that's part of the conversation we're going to have today, but we're first going to dive in with Tara-Lee and find out more about her and her organization. You've heard enough out of Terry and I, even though Terry's dying over there to talk. But we're going to just get to ask Tara-Lee questions and find out more about her. So we want to hear your story, Tara-Lee, a bit about how you started into this whole journey of consulting with organizations and helping them out. So where'd you start?
Amazing. Where did I start? Well, I was born in, no kidding.
Back to the womb, huh?
How far back are we going to go?
Yeah.
I was listening to a YouTube podcast yesterday, and I haven't finished it, so I can't even share who it was, but some really smart guy talking about how to, be a really successful entrepreneur. And, he kept talking about one of the keys to running a successful business is finding something that is just a part of who you are. And that is absolutely what this work is for me. If I think back, the one thing that I know I've always been good at my whole life, it's being a good friend. So kind of cool that was our introduction here is, I understand people. I like people. I read people really well. I just love helping people in our working genius assessment and enablement. So I just am driven to my soul to help people. And, in university, I was in a fraternity or women's fraternity. And my favorite position even back then was chapter relations. And it was, getting people university aged, young adults to play nice in the sandbox and get along and appreciate each other, even though we might not always like each other or like what we're saying, but, to have that underlying trust and, we even just called it love for your sisters. So, if I can look back through my whole life, I've always been doing what I do now. So, we built an outdoor adventure retreat high ropes course in 2011. And even before that, as a family, in early 2000s, I participated in this really cool outdoor, highly experiential retreat called Warrior Training Camp. And we did high ropes, we did fire walks, we did big hikes, we did all this stuff. And it was push your comfort zone and find out what you're made of. And, do or do was one of the mottos. And just learning how to dig deep. And out of that came our ropes course, because I had my own incredible learnings as a right out of university, and kind of found myself and my confidence in that experience. And I wanted to offer that. My family wanted to offer that to others. So we dove into the ropes course world, experiential education, experiential facilitation. We did that we're still doing that. It's still kind of the heart of our business. And, I really have this great story that we were working with kids. Originally, our business plan, my mom, I'm a family business as well. I ran it with my mom and my brother. So it was my mom's dream to build this ropes course. And we were working with kids for the first summer because that was her business model. She wanted to give back to underprivileged kids. We were never going to be a corporate thing.
Yeah.
And one corporate group came out. They found us. We weren't looking for them. They were just looking for a team building event. We've been open for a couple months, and I was terrified. I thought, these are really smart engineers. I'm in my 30s. I don't know what to do with these people. I don't know a lot about leadership or, how to help these very experienced professionals be better. And so I just offered the same program to them that I'd been doing with kids. And that truly was the birthplace of my business because they were really, really bad at it. They were really bad at all these team building exercises that kids were really good at. I'm like, what is happening? Why is this happening? You can't engineer your way through a team building exercise. It truly comes down to, all the fundamentals of working together are so simple. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Let's use those appropriately and, be kind and take risks and listen to each other and, these things that kids do really, really well. And I think as we get older and we have more experiences and people break our trust and our ideas are shot down and we miss out on that promotion and all these things happen. And this whole idea of, truly the essence of what you need to really work together disappears. So that is truly where my business came from and where my why and my mission to help people just live their best lives, because we spend a lot of time at work and people don't get that. So I want people to have fun.
So really quickly, after that first experience with the corporation, how long was it before you started going, you know what, I think I really want to start focusing more on the corporate side?
It was immediate. We started working with kids just for that summer. And I think this group came out in September. And at this point, I was still just working with the business part-time. I had my university degree and I had a sales job. And I just thought my mom was kind of crazy doing this project. But I might as well be trained on the ropes course. That's how she got me roped in, because she just needed, she needed help with facilitators. And in that moment, I also have discernment as a genius, for those of us that know we're genius. So my discernment was like, whoa, like there's something here. There's an opportunity here. I think I just felt that personal connection, and it has been like my other gig was over and this was it full time. And it's just been this really up and down journey. Not going to lie. It's been on true entrepreneurship. But 14 years later, we're still here and our business looks very different. Expanded from there into, how can I think this idea of really driving lasting change has always been important to me. On the ropes course, you would have these, it's almost like holding up a mirror. So whatever's going on for people individually, whatever dynamics are going on in a team, it's really obvious. You see it. And it's a great opportunity to say, okay, well, here's our starting point, but how do we go forward? I love experiential education, because when you learn something through, a physical, emotional connection, that's something that stays with you. Warrior Training Camp in 2004, I remember my own experience on those high ropes like it was yesterday, or, multiple experiences. And the learnings that I had personally are things that still influence me. And I think a lot of people go through training sessions, great meetings, all these different platforms, and how many people can say that something so impactful happened that it's something that really can transform your success and how you behave and how you engage in your life and in your team. I don't think there's a lot of platforms that can have that kind of an impact. So that's why I love that method of learning. But we expanded from there, different tools, dove into table group, moved into organizational health during the pandemic.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that how that happened, because that doesn't I don't know anybody that just kind of slid in and all of a sudden they're doing it just because osmosis. What was that catalyst?
So when my business was brand new, I went for lunch with a leadership coach. And I remember the day when she said, well, have you read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team? I'm like, nope. I was this kid that was just running this ropes course, and I'm doing this team building stuff now. That's a book I should read. Cool. And I read that book. And of course, anybody that's read that book and does this work knows the impact of that. So that was huge. It became a piece of my program as I was just kind of learning how to build on what I knew, which was experiential facilitation, and how to add really great pieces and tools, because I wanted to drive sustainable change. You don't drive sustainable change out of a one-day team retreat. I don't care how great it is. It doesn't happen. So I read that book, and then I read The Advantage when I was at my daughter's brownie camp. You guys probably, lots of people have heard this.
Yeah.
I was up all night in the bunk bed as a leader with my, yep,
there it is.
I highlighted book. I highlighted the whole book, and I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. I don't know how. I don't know, right?
When I grow up, I like that.
I grow up. Another piece of my story, a good friend of mine, Amanda Thomas, shout out to Construct Digital. She runs an amazing digital marketing agency. She was one of my fraternity sisters in university and been one of my biggest supporters since day one. And I remember sitting in Starbucks with her when my business was, just the ropes course. And she's like, you need to figure out how to sell annual programs. And I remember thinking, I don't know what that means. Like, I run a ropes course. What does an annual program mean? Like, if I can get a team to come out every year to do a retreat, that would be amazing. Probably unlikely that they're going to come back every year for an extended period of time. So it's just been this, I had these pieces that were, I think they just, I held on to them, and they helped. I have a visionary kind of thinking perspective and preference. And so it just helped me figure out where I wanted to be. I had no idea how I was going to get there. So then Kappa Pro happened. So how that shift happened was, Kappa Pro during the pandemic, I had the opportunity to join, and it gave me the confidence, really, more than anything else. I was already using all the tools. I had a lot of the insight. Obviously, it leveled us all up in our knowledge, but what it really
For
gave
those
me.
that don't know, what was Kappa Pro?
What was Kappa Pro?
For those that don't know, what was Kappa Pro?
Oh, it's a membership network with the Table Group. So Patrick Lencioni, the Table Group, those that are Org Health, it was just a program that he offered, a membership program for practitioners that wanted to really dive deep with their materials and become a part of a community and connect with other org health consultants. So shortly after that, I rebranded my whole website, and I just jumped in with 2 feet, and I said, I'm an org health consultant. I'd never called myself a consultant before. It's just a facilitator. And it's all just mindset, right? I was doing the same kind of work. I just had a different perspective. And so that's how I ended up doing org health work. And the ropes course and all that stuff is still a big piece of my programming. So I think that there's a lot of value in being really engaged in our learning and having some fun, but it's never, I've always said, I wanted to have team building that doesn't suck as my tagline for a lot of years. I didn't have the guts to actually put that on my website. I would now, but back then I didn't have the guts to. But it's always been very strategic, intentional, fun, but I've always been about learning with purpose. People's time is the most valuable thing we have. So I don't ever want to waste anybody's time. I want to give them really good opportunities for connection and learning and something that's going to actually matter.
How has your background in experiential learning influenced how you approach organizational health consulting? How has that impacted? Because I know for a lot of people, they come in and they're not coming from that background, so they approach organizational health consulting maybe a little differently than you might. So how has that impacted how you do consulting?
That's a good question. I mean, I think I see the connections between people, right? I always say, and this is coming from someone that owns a ropes course, that trust isn't built in big moments. It's built in very, very small moments that happen all the time. And it it can go away in a very big moment.
Right.
That's not how it's built. And
Mm.
I think that any opportunity, like any time that we're connecting with other people is an opportunity for learning. I have a growth mindset. That's just the way that I'm built. And so I'm always looking for that in myself. I think I had, my mom invested in these really cool professional and personal development courses for my brother and I, kind of through high school and through university. So it was just really embedded. And so I think that that's the lens that I look at experiential learning through, is you don't have to have these big fancy programs. But I think that even in any workshop, anytime I bring people together, I'm always integrating those components. So some of my clients and practitioners that have worked with me know I always do connection before content. So that's something that I learned, just a phrase that came from the experiential world during the pandemic, because that industry was one of many, but one that was nothing. Once we were not together in person, the whole industry had nothing. And so we really had to figure out how to leverage virtual. And we had some incredible leaders in that industry that really helped us figure that out. So that's where this connection before content thing came from, in the slide deck before you get into your meeting and so it's something simple that I always do, whether it's, share the story of your name. It takes 5 minutes, turn to a partner, whatever the topic is, whatever the idea is, something you're looking forward to in your personal life in the next 6 months. Like, it literally takes 30 seconds during an introduction. It can be really high level, and it's like our personal histories exercise, which is a big org health, table group tool. That's just going a little bit deeper. I get people up, I get them moving around. I do concentric circles all the time in my sessions. So you get split people in half, have one group of people get in a circle facing outwards and the other group of people around them facing inwards, and everybody has a partner. So anytime that you want to get some discussion around something, get them in a concentric circle. Now you have 2 people, give them a question, processing question, reflection on anything, and they have a conversation. Then you have the outside circle, move 3 people to the right. All of a sudden you have a new partner. But that whole process of being up out of your seats, standing in a unique formation, moving around, all of that, it actually engages the brain differently. So those conversations that they're having about whatever practical material you're having in your session is going to actually embed in our brains and in our retention better. So those are a few examples that I just always integrate that stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I talk a lot about is this idea of, and the personal development world and consulting world always talks about, you got to build trust, you got to build trust. And I have always been more of a maverick or the contrarian of it, and say, it's not about building trust, because we build trust. That's great. But if you have distrust already, you're building trust on something that is already fractured in some way. And so one of the things I think a lot about with the ropes course, and I also noticed when I joined Kappa Pro, and I joined Kappa Pro kind of by accident, is like somebody told me about 5 dysfunctions after I was doing it. And they said, what you're doing seems a lot like this 5 dysfunctions. I'm like, oh yeah, very, very similar. And then I had to go read the book. I didn't even know what it was. And then when I read the book, I was like, it is. I want to get more of this. But what I've noticed is that fear of conflict isn't because we don't trust. It's because we actually distrust actively. And when I think about the ropes course, what you're really doing is you're pointing and shining a light on the fact that there's distrust nobody's talking about.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole conversation around ropes courses that's a whole conversation unto itself. You guys said you talked about psychological safety last week, and quite in depth. I'm quite fortunate that I came into the ropes course industry when I did. So before me, the industry did not have this concept of psychological safety. I mean, our entire business world didn't really. But ropes courses were this idea, which is the program that I participated in individually when I went to my course. You go out with a group and you have the opportunity to do this really scary thing, and everyone rallies around you, and you're petrified. You fell off a roof when you were 5 years old, and you have like legitimate trauma around being on a ladder, but you have a team that believes in you and supports you, and they're going to cheer you on. And now it's just this whole horrible peer pressure situation where now you're kind of forced into doing this thing that you don't want to do under this facade of team building and building trust. And what it does is it does the complete opposite. You might do that element, you might get back down on the ground, and you are, to your point, Terry, that distrust has now just escalated and become worse within the team. Individually, there's horrible things that happen psychologically that we've never, ever ran our course like that. So when I came into the industry, this idea of what we call challenge by choice, designing programs based on inclusive design, making sure that everything is set up so that there is an opportunity for everybody to participate in a way that is not just physically, but emotionally safe for them to participate. I really had to learn. I really had to unlearn, because when I went to my warrior camp, I was pushed. But the difference was I signed up for that as an individual, and I committed to, this is why I'm here. This is what I want to do. And in that case, I have that control over my own experience. And there's huge
value. You got the chance to opt out before.
Right, exactly. And I opted in.
Yeah.
And that's very different when it comes to team programming. And I think that that's important on and off the ropes course, giving people the opportunity to do that, because in that environment, and I really had to unlearn that, because I'd had this personal experience where I'm like, if you go and do what I just did, you're going to have the same learning that I had, and it's going to be amazing for you. So you should do that. I had to really unlearn. And there are some gurus, Tom Leahy, as one in that industry, that have just done incredible work in driving this new way of thinking and giving people the element of choice and giving them what, we might perceive as being an opt-out, but it's really giving individuals the opportunity to choose what's best for them. And like I said, that mirror, that goes right into our organizations and into our teams, right? To me, it's really just a platform to shine a light onto whatever is going on and have some real conversations about that and make the connections. I always said, I always want to connect the dots between whatever happened out here, whatever behaviors happened out here, whether it's highlighting our working genius preferences or highlighting dynamics within a team. It's just, you see things so differently. And on the ropes course, there was always ground-based programming and the actual high ropes. Right. And this is really timely because we're actually retiring our high ropes as of the end of May. It's going to be very emotional and sad, but transition is okay and good things happen out of change. And it's just time for us to do that. But we're keeping our facility, and we're rebranding. Instead of Red Lodge Ropes Course, we're Red Lodge Retreat Center. And we're still going to do all the great ground-based programming that we've always done as a part of our programs, but we're just not going to have the high ropes. What I always find fascinating, and then I'll let you talk. Ground-based stuff is where you truly work together as a team. So I give people, here's your problem, here's your props, here's your rules. It's all fake and it's all pretend, and that's fine. But you see the terrible communication. You see the ineffective decision-making, the terrible problem solving. And all you see is people showing up the way they naturally show up. So if you think that you're only having these problems here, where this doesn't really seem real and that's not the case. It's happening back at work too. When it came to the high ropes, so people would do stuff in the morning on the ground, and you'd see all of these hiccups and all of these mistakes and all of this inefficiency. It becomes so obvious. And then you go to the high ropes where all of a sudden somebody's 40 feet off the air and everyone's paying attention. And right. And it's like your efficiency goes way up. Your communication is way better. And it's always this really interesting, like, how can we get that level of efficiency when it seems like it's just the everyday day-to-day, right? Because the everyday day-to-day matters. And that's where the org health work comes in, right? Having that clarity and making sure that we have the system set up. So we're having the right communication, and all of our teams and all of our leaders know what's most important, because the executive team has made those decisions and is communicating that out, right? So how can you create those systems so that you can get that level of efficiency and realize that your role matters and what you do or do not do here today, because you're not anonymous and you're not irrelevant, and right, like all of these pieces that we bring to our work can just be highlighted in this other place where it's just fun. And, you're not just in a day of training or, in this session, but you can still talk about real things.
Yeah. And it's really interesting how people tend to rationalize away poor performance as if it's a one-off thing. And, well, it's just a game, so I didn't really give it my all. Well, how often does that it's just come out and we've actually backed up so far from high performance that we're not even mild performance right now. And this is the kind of thing, and like the high level ropes course that you're talking about, off the ground, people are like, oh, this does matter, I could fall. But how often can we actually fall in our business or fall in our relationships or fall in those other places on the ground, but we don't know it because we've rationalized it so fast?
Well, we make up all of our stories, and our stories become real, right? I mean, on the course, the number of times I hear, well, you didn't give us that rule before. You didn't say that right. You like the quick finger pointing. And I've learned as a facilitator, this is my game. These are my rules. This is I can change my mind all I want, because here's the reality. In real life, that's what happens, right?
That's exactly what happens.
Exactly what happens. The game changes. The rules change. Your client wanted this, and now they want this. You can't just and it's so fascinating. It just, you see these automatic reactions and these automatic, right? People are looking for somebody to blame. They're looking for somebody to point
it's so human to want to. It's so human to want to retell the story so that you're right. It's like, well, what happened was this, and now this is where I'm at, and it doesn't matter what happened. It matters that you're there, and we need to take a new step. And we need to
So how are you being part of the solution and not just focusing on what happened or who did that, or how are we moving forward and how are we talking to each other? There's this one activity, it is my favorite activity. I'll tell you guys about it so people can do it with their teams. Because all you need is a tent pole. So one fiberglass tent pole, and you just lay it down on the ground, and you have your team half stand on one side, half stand on the other side, facing each other. And they all point their pointer fingers. So you have this one line of fingers pointing towards away from you. So essentially I'm going to raise that telephone or that tent pole up and place it down on top of one line of fingers. Okay. So everyone's standing up and they have their hands and they're holding this tent pole, and I have my hand on top of it just so that making sure they're all touching. So here's the rules. As a team, you have to lower this tent pole down to the ground. Seems pretty simple. But here's the rules. Nobody's fingers can lose contact with that pole. You have to make sure that your fingers are touching it at all times. If you lose contact, no big deal. You just have to start over again. So here's your starting point. When you're all standing, you're all at shoulder height. So if you make a mistake, own it, call it out, right? And we're just going to start over again. No big deal. You have to keep your fingers underneath. Nobody can put their fingers on top. And again, you have those wonderful inventor brains that are just always trying to find a way around the rules. So that's the goal. And so I'm holding my hand on it just so that they're all making sure they're touching, and everyone's putting a little bit of pressure. Well, it's just science. It's not, there's no other reason, but I let my hands go and it is magic. Everyone's expecting they're going to start lowering this thing down to the ground. It's a fiberglass tent pole. It does not weigh very much. You have 12 people that have their fingers pressing up, and it goes like this up over everyone's head. And it is the most entertaining, because I've done this activity probably 1,000 times. Initially, it's very entertaining, but only because the complete opposite happens of what everyone expects to happen. And the people react to that. So what do people do? They're like, who's raising this up? Right? It's like, I know that I'm totally
it's not me.
Right? Somebody else is sabotaging this exercise. And some people, most groups, will get stuck in that. There's all this energy and all this attention and all this. Some people are getting mad. Some people are just checking out. They're like, I don't know what's going on here. This is weird. And so then we restart. And then they do it again, and they do it again, and they do it again. And eventually the key to it is, what do you guys think the magic is?
Talk. Communicate.
What kind of communication?
Pay attention. Well, it's really,
because there was lots of communication when it was up here, and they were all free.
Right. How are we work together to actually move together? I can do my 2 fingers, but I can't do yours. So let are we going to count?
Who is the best person to know when you can go down, Terry? Is it me way at the other end because I'm looking down and
I'd say middle.
Or is it too high?
Yep. I'd say middle.
Yep.
Sometimes, right? It's such a brilliant exercise because it is
I can see.
No
see
one person can do it on their own. No one person can influence the outcome. But these lessons, like if I'm looking down the pole because I'm trying to lead or I'm trying to be helpful and I'm trying to communicate to my team by telling them what I think they need to be doing, what am I not paying attention to?
Yourself.
Myself. So I could be disconnecting, but I'm not even noticing.
Yep.
Right. So instead of focusing on what everyone else is doing, what if I actually, and here's the word trust, right? If I actually trust that everybody on my team knows their job. They know they need to keep their fingers on and they need to lower it down. And I trust that everyone is going to focus on quality control. They're going to make sure that they are maintaining contact and that they're looking at their own fingers so that if they actually lose contact, they can actually call it, because if we're not looking, we don't know. Right? Quality control, we totally just messed up and we just sent out like product to our client and it was totally right because I wasn't paying attention because I was too busy helping my team. It's so fascinating. And so
that is very fascinating. I like it.
And if everybody does that, you actually need to just stop talking. Like that's the key is everybody needs to stop talking. They actually need to focus on what they're doing. Sometimes I've seen the best teams hum or sing a song or actually just be quiet, because it's about becoming aligned. It's about actually focusing on what our goal is. And instead of trying to micromanage and control and point fingers, I'm just going to do my job. And I know everyone else is going to do their job. And if I can't lower it down right now because I know I have pressure, I know I'm going to lower it down when I can. My team doesn't feel the need to tell me that it's high where I'm at because I know that. And they know that I'm going to lower it down as soon as I can, right? It just changes the whole, like you see these automatic behaviors, and that stuff happens every day in our organizations because we're people and we react. And so it's just like, that's something that we can do. It doesn't have to be the ropes course, right? You can do stuff like that. It creates this like energy and this injection of fun and this huge accomplishment. Like I have left teams and let them battle this out for an hour. If they're the right kind of team that is truly committed, because if they work at something like that for an hour, and you're going to have people that are going to be ticked off, you're going to have people that are going to walk away, you're going to have, and you're going to see all kinds of dynamics. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's all just, I'm a big believer in self-awareness. And if we start to pay attention and understand our own triggers and our own reactions and our preferences, and we learn when they're helpful and when we need to put them away, me, teamwork and all this other stuff just happens much more naturally and easier once we can do that and actually check ourselves and So yeah, that's why I love experiential education.
I love that exercise.
I love
That's just an amazing idea, and I can see how over communicating can actually get in the way of it sometimes.
Well,
That's
it's funny we use this word communication, but to really dig into what does that mean? Like,
Right.
what does it mean to communicate? We focus so much on the words, and that's important, right? We need to make sure we're over communicating, right? That's a fundamental and discipline, and we understand that we need repetition, and we need to make sure that we're being clear. But when it
Yeah.
comes to, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Listening is like we don't listen. We don't listen to each other. We are, listening to to find a spot when we can start to talk. It's
They have a saying in the 12-step groups. I'm a member of a 12-step group, and the idea, especially the new people, you come in, you got to take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. And it is for that very reason that we're all so busy having the answers and giving our opinion and trying to weigh in that we're not listening.
Yep. Definitely.
and so, yeah, and those are the lessons. I like teams to struggle. I like to see them get frustrated, not because I like to see misery, but because they can start to figure it out. And I've seen teams where they arrange people, right? They get people higher to lower, so they think that the taller versus to the shorter, and that is gravity is going to help one end go down and then the other. Like I've seen people trying to engineer their ways through these things, and we don't automatically go to these very, very basic, like how we are actually behaving is impacting that outcome way more than we realize. We're going to our strategy, and we're going to our back to our smart versus healthy, right? We're trying to find some kind of reason that something is failing or something isn't working. And sometimes it is just so fundamentally, they're simple concepts, but it's not where we go. And that back to my kids versus adults, right? Kids just get this stuff so much quicker than we do.
Well,
Very, very interesting.
I love it. And coming full circle there, as you mentioned, that behavior reality, and we don't focus on that behavior. You talked earlier about that you've moved along this spectrum of really focusing in on how do I help change behavior within an organization. And so you've moved from experiential team building into organizational health, and then come to the point of now you're really focused in on how am I bringing behavior change to organizations, and how has that come about, and what does that look like for you today?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. That's my favorite question these days. So a year ago, I connected with an amazing human by the name of Chris Taylor, and his company is Actionable. And they really specialize in driving sustainable behavior change. So he has a methodology and technology that helps support consultants in supporting our clients in driving that change. And being that I have, ever since that day when that client showed up and I wanted to figure out how to do this for adults, I've always been trying to figure out how to have learning and development matter over the long term. Because I know even as much as I try and lean into experiential, and that is a really, really effective way to learn, it's still, you might be talking about it around the water cooler for longer than your classroom training session. But even that on its own is not enough to drive us to actually change. And the only way that teams change and the only way organizations get healthier is when the individual people that are in that system actually start to level up their behaviors. And there's all kinds of behavioral change science and lots of reasons why our brains don't like to do that. So that's really where I have shifted my business over the last year. It's really been kind of the missing puzzle piece to my business. So yeah, now we really focus on helping people with incremental behavior change. So instead of just coming to a training session, a workshop, whatever you want to call it, an org health movement transformation, really kind of distilling that down to what is the laughably small step? What is the next little thing that me as an individual on this team needs to do over the next 30 days in order to start to integrate some of the learning. So we could take that helium stick activity, which is what that's called. If anyone wants to look it up, it's called helium stick. You go through an experience like that and you have all kinds of ahas. You're like, wow, I really automatically went to blame other people. And then we had this facilitated discussion and you're like, wow, yeah, I do that. I do that every day in my role. That's something that I want to look at shifting. So then we would add this other component and say, okay, what does it look like for you to build a new habit around that? What are you doing right now in a situation, in a conflict, right? We all have those misunderstandings, or somebody says something to us we don't necessarily agree with, and we have our own patterns and our own, I go to this story, I behave like this, and this is how I want to behave instead. And so then we'll give the system and the support for them to work on making that change. So to me, then not only have you had this fun experience and you have all of these holistic learnings and awarenesses, but we're actually going to support you to make sure that there's one behavior that you're going to work on changing as an actual habit, so that we know that going forward that you're going to have a new habit around that. You're actually going to apply something that you've learned. And that's a piece that I think is missing in a lot of the work that we do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I agree. I think that often the simplicity of change is stop doing things that aren't working and start doing things that are working. And the problem is that we're so patterned and we're not aware of the patterns that we engage in, that we go right back to it, while at the same time telling ourselves we're not doing it anymore. We just keep doing it. And so I love the helium stick idea, because it really, the way I kind of conceptualize it in my mind is it's a tangible idea of letting go and surrendering at the same time as allowing other people to do the same. And I know for me, I would be messing that whole thing up right away, because I think I'm surrendering. Oh, I'm off the thing. Oh, I'm not surrendering as good, or I'm trying to make surrender happen, or I'm trying to lead the people, or whatever it is. And I know I do that. And so it's like, okay, how do I just be a lowerer among the lowerers without trying to make something happen? And it's so difficult, but I think that's, yeah. And I think that's what happens in businesses, is like, okay, how can I actually be more present and be more of the surrendered person doing exactly what needs to be done while having my agenda? It's like, well, maybe we got to look at the agenda. And then that's the whole thing. And I think that I find that what you're doing is incredible. I'd love to learn more about it. How would we learn more about what you're doing?
Well, I love LinkedIn. I'm trying to do a lot on LinkedIn, putting out some really good content around some of these sticky points, trying to make it really relevant. So I'd love people to connect with me on LinkedIn, just through my personal account. And then my website, I have a great website. I have lots of lead magnet tools on there. So, simple things around that leaders can do to quickly connect more effectively with their team members, increase some engagement without giving them a whole giant to-do list that is burdensome. Some conflict management tools on there. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. So those are the two ways. Nexlevelteams.com is my website. No T. Next level without a T, because that's confusing and more fun.
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Well, yeah, thank you. And
It's
I
been
would
so
also encourage.
informative, and I love the stories of how you actually fit experiential in. It gives me something more to think about in how we do what we're doing too. So
Yeah,
that's been fun.
Happy to help, guys. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
Thrilled you're here. Thrilled to have you on here. If you're a business and you need help in check in, connect with Tara-Lee on Nexlevel on both LinkedIn and on our website. If you're a consultant and you want to learn more what Tara-Lee's doing, hey, I would encourage you to plug into the Organizational Health Collective. She's on there. She's actually been doing some seminars for some of the folks in there. So that's been fantastic as well for all the rest of us learning more and more about her business and what she's doing as well. So, and also it's just a great place to get to interact with her. So come on over and plug in there as well. So those are two things.
I have to say, if you want a high-ends rope course, you better act now because it's going away.
Going away after the end of May.
Yep. Then there's no more.